better buckle your seatbelts because it's going to be a show to watch.
From Tiger Communications.
Jackson, touchdown.
For 20 years, East Alabama's sports talk leader.
Swing and drive, mountain right.
Sportscall.
Oh, what a dunk.
Call in now at 887-3401 locally.
Right through, he got it.
Or 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free.
Struck him out.
And now, coming to you live from the loveliest village on the plains. Sports Call.
Hello again, everyone, and good Tuesday afternoon. Welcome into the latest edition of Sports Call. I am Andy Graham alongside Randy Lee, and we'll be with you for the next 2 hours, taking your phone calls and discussing everything going on in the world of sports. And that is saying a lot because there is a lot going on in the world of sports right now. We'd love to hear from you, though. We'd love for you to be a part of the program. So give us a call, 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free, or locally at 334-887-3401. We'd love to know what's on your mind this afternoon, whether you're listening on 93.9 The Tiger or sportscallauburn.com via the internet. Again, a lot going on in the world of Auburn sports. Auburn drops their season finale in Starkville over the weekend, 79-66. I was actually at that game. I'll tell you a little bit about that as we move forward in the program today. But Auburn will take on Tennessee on Wednesday. That'd be tomorrow night in Nashville at the SEC tournament. Of course, Auburn opened the SEC season with Tennessee winning that game, and then later on, about a month later, a little more than a month later, went to Knoxville. Things didn't fare too well. Auburn got pretty much run out of the gym there in Knoxville. It was another great weekend for the Auburn softball team, another not-so-good weekend for the baseball team. Not really a lot of positives coming out of that weekend. I guess there's always some positives to take from it, but whenever you come away winless in a tournament, 3 games, it just not a lot of positives there. The Auburn gymnastics team posted their best ever score on the road as they defeated Georgia. So that's the number 10 team in the country. So I think Auburn moves up to number 7 in the country now in gymnastics as that season is kind of coming to a close. I think Auburn has one more meet this weekend. That will be at home. So if you be sure to take advantage of that, it'll be, I think, the last one at home before the end of the season. Auburn playing Georgia Tech today there at Plainsman Park. That game, I think first pitch is about 27 minutes from now, so 4:30 first pitch there. Georgia Tech undefeated. I think number 9 in the country, I believe. So, Georgia Tech, a very formidable opponent. Auburn really on a slide now, losing 3 straight. They really need to find a way to win this game today. The pitcher, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the guy starting for Georgia Tech, I think he's got a 6 ERA coming into this game. I think he's got a no decision on the season. So didn't fare too well his first time out. Maybe that's a good sign for the Tigers as they hit a whopping 189 in those 3 games this weekend down in Pensacola. They need to really enjoy the friendly confines of Plainsman Park and get the bats heated up again. Pitching was okay. Pitching was fine over the weekend. It was just the bats that went very, very, very cold. Peyton Manning decided to, after much speculation, after about a month of going back and forth, he decides to hang it up. Peyton Manning retires after 18 years of quarterbacking in the NFL. We'll talk about that, certainly give our thoughts on that. Auburn had their pro day yesterday. We can talk a little bit about that if you'd like to. Maria Sharapova failed the drug test at the Australian Open. We can talk about that if you'd like to. Brian Matthews is going to join us opening the second hour at about 5 o'clock today. So we'll talk to him, get his thoughts on everything going on right now. But, Randy, good to see you.
Glad to be here, buddy.
How are you today?
Beautiful day outside always makes me feel
a lot better.
No, it doesn't. And I know that cold weather does not treat you correctly, does it?
Yeah, I used to not mind it at all, but now I hate it. I mean, I'm like I'm 80 years old. I mean, I understand now why old people move to Florida.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Love to hear from you out there. And our question of the day, Andy, I'll throw that out there real quick before we get started because I'm going to kick it right back over to you and catch up on your trip over to Starkville, which didn't start too well for the Auburn Tigers, going down 19, I believe, at half, 39-20. It was an ugly beginning. We scored a little bit better and played a little bit better, I thought, in the second half, but we'll talk about it real quick, though. Where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of greatest QBs in NFL history? That's our question of the day today. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. First, y'all have a good trip over?
We did. It was a lot of fun. Loaded up. It was just kind of a one-day trip, so it kind of worked out perfectly. I'd never been to Starkville before. It all kind of started years ago when Lee Corso used to talk. The Egg Bowl used to be on Thanksgiving night, and they always used to, Lee Corso and the game day game would do that game, and he always used to talk about the Little Dewey. The Little Dewey, and there's something. The food is so good, and this and that. And I think he did. He gave away a pecan pie to the MVP of the game. But that's something we need to check out sometime. We need to go and experience the Little Dewey. And not that bad of a trip, over there. It's other than having to go through Tuscaloosa. It's not that bad. But I will say the Little Dewey lived up to the billing. The barbecue was good. The atmosphere was. The whole place has got just a lot of character to it. Blues music playing as you go in, playing throughout. As you sit down to eat. Like I say, the barbecue was good. The brisket though, oh, Brandy, the brisket was outstanding. Melt in your mouth, tasty.
Let me ask you about this. I want to spin over to the basketball game. I brought it up at the end of last week.
Oh, there was a game? Okay. Yeah,
there was a game.
Okay.
And the atmosphere around was clearly what you were heading for with this Auburn team. It's not that it's a terrible Auburn team, but we're in the process of changing where we currently stand in the SEC. Let's spin this positively. Let me spin this a little negative towards Mississippi State, though. I watch this team play again. There's talent on this team. There's post talent and there's perimeter talent on this team. They took it to Auburn on Saturday. You still look down, they've got a losing record on the season. It's still a little mind-numbing to me knowing what they put on the floor am I overthinking this a little bit, Andy?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they do have some talent. I mean, I don't know where those – it started raining threes and, about 10 minutes into the game. I mean, Auburn goes up 8-0, and, Mississippi, it's just a comedy of errors. And it ended up basically, I saw two bad teams play basketball, and the less worst team won. But – it ended. I thought it was like 12-8, 10 minutes into the game, and I was wondering if we were ever going to make 50. But then again, like I say, Mississippi State got hot and they started hitting threes left and right, and Auburn turned the ball over. Now, Auburn just never shot the ball well. That's the difference in the game. We didn't shoot the ball well from three, which if that's the case, we don't have a lot of chance. We don't have a great chance to win the games, and we were 7 of 19. They were 11 of 25. So, Mississippi State, I thought, got better as the year went along. When they opened the season, I thought they were just horrendous. But I think that's part of – and I said this, I think, the other day. That's part of Ben Howland. He's that kind of guy. He's just a different kind of coach. Coming in there, he's going to make them play defense. And I think that was part of the transition. He started playing some younger guys later in the year. And, Mississippi State ends up playing a little bit better down the stretch, going 7-11 in the league. But, Auburn was 11-19 headed to the SEC tournament last year. They're 11-19, or they were 12-19 headed to the tournament last year. They're 11-19 as we head to the tournament this year. We were 4-11. I think we were 4-12 last year. We're 5-13 this year. Not 4-12. Yeah, 4-12. That would be right. 5-13. But I don't know. I don't even know kind of what to say here, but.
Okay, I'll spin it positive.
Go ahead.
888-9-TIGER-9. If you got something positive to say about the basketball program, we'll take it from you as well. TJ Lang, you keep looking down the stat totals. A true sophomore, 16 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, had 33 minutes. He is a good piece. Does he stay in the starting line, or does he end up in the starting lineup towards the end of his career? Who knows? But I know that I like him on the court, and I know he has the potential of adding a nice dynamic to this team in the years to come. We're looking forward to the years to come. This is still a growing process under Bruce Pearl. Horace Spencer, last 6-7 ball games, I thought that he's found a little bit of offense. 13 points, 5 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 assists, 1 steal, 21 minutes. To me, he he's a good piece. He's a good piece for moving forward also. And those are positives. I mean, if a majority of your key point guys and your 11 and 19 were what we saw last year, which were 2 seniors, boy, but watching this season come to a close with Canty heading on out and not seeing him, but some of these other guys stepping up a little bit, I got a little bit of positive feel moving into next year, Andy.
Yeah, 4-14 is what I was trying to get out. 18 games. But anyway, look, I'm like you. Hart Spencer has gotten better, and he's had career highs, I think, the last 3 games or something like that. I mean, he went from like 9 to 10 to now 13 points. And like you say, that little jump hook is starting to be a weapon for him, and he's finding that, and that's a great sign to see him actually mature and get better a little bit as the season has gone along. Bryce Brown is a guy that we bring back next year as a sophomore. I think that's going to be, he has proven that he can shoot the 3. He's proven that he is an active guy. He needs to get a little bit better on the defensive end. TJ Lane he needs to continue to develop. You add in Daniel Purefoy, who, it's all talk at this point, but all the talk was last year that Kareem Canty, could really, really play and shoot. That's all the talk this year. If he, lives up without the extracurricular and foolishness that Canty brought along. But what are you going to get out of Trayvon Reed? I mean, 255 pounds now. Obviously, he's dedicated himself physically to getting better. Hopefully, that means that he's dedicated himself mentally to getting that much better as well. So, there are some signs. I mean, I think they mentioned yesterday. I was listening to the show, and they were talking about look what South Carolina has done. Look what Frank Martin has done. It's taken him 4 years to really get that program to where he wanted it to be. Is it going to take 4 years for Auburn? It might take it.
I hope. That means you got there.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, next year at this point, you're just, if you've been an Auburn fan since 2003. Is that really the last year that we can throw out there that we were somewhat competitive on a national stage?
Yeah, 2010 we made the NIT, made a little run in it, but
3. So really, we've got nothing but time at this point as an Auburn fan, and he's still my guy. I wouldn't want anybody else.
I don't think anybody. At this point, I think I'm still. If I see Bruce Pearl in person, I'm saying, please don't give up on us. Please don't give up on us. Please just let's ride it out. We support you. We love you. Don't give up on us.
SEC tournament currently, it's got Auburn taking on Tennessee. You mentioned that a little bit earlier. Auburn did have a nice victory initially, but then just couldn't put any offense together in the second game of the season. On the 10th, we'll move into Arkansas. We'll be taking on Florida. That one's at 12 p.m. Alabama versus Ole Miss at 6 p.m. Mississippi State versus Georgia. Alabama reeled a bit there at the end of the year, didn't they?
Yeah, they had a swan song here. I can't believe people are actually really, still considering them a bubble team at this point. I guess if they were to win like 3 games like Auburn did last year, possibly, they might.
I think if they did that, they would probably get in because of some of the strong wins that they've had. But it's going to take like 3 wins. Who thinks Alabama, after they've watched them the last couple of weeks, thinks they're going to win 3 games in the SEC? I don't know if they win this first.
I'm not sure I'm not sure. They could. You see what, like you said, you go back and look at the body of work and see some of the games that they've actually won. I guess at least it gives you hope, and it gives you to say, because the SEC is just not that good to me. I look at it, and I don't think there's anybody that Alabama can't beat if they're fortunate. But, they're going to have to play their best. They're going to have to get really hot. And some teams are going to have to help them probably. But, what about Texas A&M actually winning the SEC? Tying technically, but what do you think?
I think they've been close over the years, haven't they?
They've been close.
Been a lot closer than we've been over the years.
Everybody's been closer.
I'll tell you this is my thoughts about Alabama, though. They got Obasahan, who is first-team All-SEC guy this year. I don't think there's any question. He can get his shot. I watch Alabama outside of that. I don't see anybody can get their shot. Riley Norris is a nice player, but you better find a way in the scheme of the offense to get him open. I don't see him making any drive. Here, the problem with Alabama is Dazon Ingram went down, and Ingram can get his shot.
How good is Ingram?
Very, very good. Best player in the state of Alabama by far last year. in my opinion. And I saw him a lot, and I called his All-Star game.
What size is he?
6'5", plays a point, good handles, unorthodox, a great athlete. What they needed, they needed a second guy that can get a shot. Here's the problem with Alabama, though. Obasan's gone next year. So then it becomes new guys that are
30
coming in.
points a game.
The reason I went back to Auburn and looking at the positives closing out the year, I think our younger guys got better as the season progressed. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Absolutely. No doubt about that.
So you add some more next year, and I think there's,
And Mustafa Heron should be a guy that comes in and plays and be an immediate impact type player.
Let's quickly get a phone call before we head to the first break. Luke, you're on Sports Call.
Guys, how's it going?
Good to hear from you, Luke.
Couple of things really quickly. First of all, I don't, short of winning the tournament, I can't see Alabama getting in for a couple of reasons. Number one, they've looked so bad in these last few games, and they're just tired. They don't have any depth. Losing Dejon Ingram was just an absolute killer in the end, and the wins against Florida on the road and LSU on the road don't look quite as attractive now as they did 2 or 3 weeks ago. And secondly, at a point where Andy and I always go head-to-head, we've already seen in 2 conference tournaments, 2 dump truck teams have beaten the number 1 seeded teams out of their tournament. So that's probably going to push some bubble teams out as some teams that, quite frankly, 100% do not deserve to be in a tournament are going to get in because they won their conference tournaments because of the way these things are set up. And again, it just goes back to I'm every year more and more. I hate the conference tournaments. I understand they're dramatic. I understand they can be fun, but in terms of helping to crown a national championship, it's just an absolute joke to me. When you've got teams like Valparaiso and Monmouth. Monmouth is certainly not a basketball powerhouse, but they've beaten some good teams throughout the year, and they are on the bubble now because they lost to some team that got quote unquote a second chance in their conference tournament. I just think it's a joke.
Great comments, Luke. We appreciate it this afternoon up against our first break here. Andy, we'll talk about that on the other side because I think you and Luke differ on your thoughts on that end.
Do sometime. Up against the break. Don't go anywhere. More Sports Call presented by Home Place Mortgage right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Call on this Tuesday afternoon. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock. Taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. Sports Call today brought to you by Home Place Mortgage. Home Place Mortgage of Auburn and Lake Martin, the region's best mortgage professionals and rates for all new home or refinancing mortgage services. Come to the right place. Home Place Mortgage of Auburn and Lake Martin. Check them out at homeplacemtg.com. Where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history? Of course, he steps down. Did you watch the press conference yesterday?
Yes, very good.
I mean, I've been around long enough now. I've seen so many of these, and I wonder if some of these guys. I mean, it never fails. These guys that have been around forever and are really quote unquote the great players. They all, no matter who it is, even the ones that you might least expect, are the ones that are the most emotional. And I wonder if these guys truly understand how fortunate they are. Because, I mean, he played in the NFL for 18 years, and, yeah, everybody enjoyed watching him play. But, I mean, he's emotional because he doesn't want to stop. That's because right. It was so much fun, because he enjoyed it so much, and he wants to come back. I mean, you got John Q out here that's a coal miner for 40 years. And he retires. You think he's sad that he was retired? I mean, does anybody shed? Does anybody, is a press conference for him? I mean, he goes and collects his little pension, but he played something. He got to play a game for a chosen profession, and he was good at it. But it struck me. I don't know that the emotion that always goes into these retirement speeches, but it was done about as well as I've ever seen it done.
I agree. I mean, I thought that him talking about some of the competition that he went up against, the love that you already knew. First off, we all know Peyton. You feel like he's a guy that you've been keeping up with forever, but he also, and this is what he's done a tremendous job with his Saturday Night Live all the way over to his commercial. This guy is someone that we feel like we know on a personal level, not only what Derek Jeter. So, for instance, Derek Jeter, who kind of kept all of that apart, Peyton's not done that. Now, is there some skeletons in the closet? Of course, there probably is for everyone. So, i.e. the situation you see with Tennessee 20-plus years ago, which is still obscene to me. If he mooned somebody, I apologize out there if somebody took offense to what I just said, but I think what he did was moon someone in the locker room. Am I right? Or, in the training room.
That's correct.
Come on. We still talking about that. We got to come up with something better if we're going to keep bringing that up. But back to what I'm saying, though, he did a tremendous job with his speech yesterday. Where does he fit in, though? All-time quarterbacks. And did this championship change your mind any and move him up that list?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think I'd put him the same place whether they had gotten beat by Carolina. I have him on my list at number 3. Joe Montana, Tom Brady, they're 1 and 2 in whatever you'd like to put them in. I have, for a long time, fought to say Joe Montana 1, Tom Brady 2. I'm about ready to say Tom Brady 1, Joe Montana 2. But I put Peyton at a solid 3. I got my top 5, and I got Terry Bradshaw at 4, John Elway at 5.
I would be willing to have an argument with you that you could think about putting Peyton at number 2. I love Joe Montana, and I think at the first of his career, he was far and away the guy that took San Francisco from being a relevant but mediocre team to a championship team. He and his coach took him to that point. Later in his career, he was exceptional still, but I think you watch Steve Young, who, of course, is another Hall of Famer, but we're talking about Hall of Famers here. But Steve Young took that team to another Super Bowl championship with what was assembled around. And Roger Craig and Jerry Rice and the offensive line that was there and the defense and the whole scheme at the, in the time frame, what it was, not only Jerry Rice, but my gosh, the rest of that receiving core also.
John Taylor, Brent Jones.
I mean, this was an exceptionally good team. And now Joe Montana was the trigger of this team, so I don't take anything away. Peyton on the opposite end, he played with some good players, but I don't never think that any of those Colts teams held a candle to what we saw from San Francisco during that time frame. Would you disagree with that?
No,
I think he had to carry him, completely carry him. So that's the reason I think it's worth an argument. Now, if you want to keep Joe Montana too, fine. But I'd be willing to argue with you that Peyton may deserve to be up there, especially now that he picks up that second title.
Numbers-wise, there's no contest. I mean, they're not even close. Peyton retires most passing touchdowns, most passing yards, most wins as a starting quarterback. I mean, and not to mention single-season touchdowns, single-season yards. I mean, the record book is not even close as far as Joe Montana and Peyton Manning. But you got to balance it in, and you get to decide in your own – this is your list. You get to decide how much – how many points you allow for championships, how many points you allow for yardage, how many – they talked about it yesterday. Peyton Manning changed the game. People that do that are iconic. People that do that are Johnny Unitas. People that do that are, it just changes the way you play the game. And he did that. That speaks to your argument of number two. The Joe Montana is 4 for 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
That to me, and that's why I put Terry Bradshaw. A lot of people might not put Bradshaw in the top 5. He's got to be there for me. 4 Super Bowls.
Question of the day, where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of the greatest QBs in NFL history? 888-9, Tiger 9, 334-887-3401. You brought up a point that I think is worthy of bringing up. Is Johnny Unitas, you got him 7th on your list, but in his day and age and what he did with championships as well and throwing the football around the way that he did during that time frame, does he deserve to be up? Is it mainly because of stats that you're looking that you think so many put him a little bit lower than maybe he deserves to be?
That's probably so. I mean, it's so difficult to balance the statistics of today versus what he, like you said. I mean, he was it's kind of like Babe Ruth. I mean, what he did in his day was prolific. But you compare it to today, and you say, well, this guy threw for this much or whatever. He might deserve to be higher on the list, and he probably does. But having never seen him play, but on film, it's difficult for me to judge. That's why I'm, and to be, Terry Bradshaw I never really watched. He was retiring by the time I was in, getting to where I was watching NFL football. So, but I did see Dan Marino. I did see John Elway. I did see Peyton and Tom Brady, Brett Favre, Troy Aikman, Steve Young. I watched these guys in the primes of their careers. And, I got Brett Favre 8th. A lot of people might have him higher than that. But, I mean, I put Dan Marino, John Elway, Bradshaw, Unitas, Manning. I mean, where's Brett Favre on your list?
Brett Favre's around there. One player that you don't have on your top 10 that I would, just by the eye test, Roger Staubach to me was ahead of his time.
There again, yeah.
I think that this guy in today's football, in a read option game, especially in college, can you imagine this guy in college? The way that he ran. And he threw the football. He could do it all. And was tough and gritty. And, of course, I think that he was college football had their poll, and he was picked as the all-time quarterback in college football. So he can't jump up much further than that. But in my opinion, if he played in today's game with the schemes that you see today, his numbers would have been far what they were back then. So for the eye test, I'd put Roger Staubach as far up as you're willing to go.
Where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history? We'd love to know. Give us a call, 1-888-9-TIGER-9, toll-free locally at 334-887-3401. Up against another break here, but don't go anywhere. More Sports Call, presented by Lee Marketing Group, is on the way. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Sports Call on this Tuesday afternoon. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock this evening, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9, toll-free locally at 334-887-3401. Give us a call. Let us know what's on your mind. Where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history? Auburn and Georgia Tech underway. It is the top of the first. Andrew Mitchell on the mound, sophomore for Auburn, 2 outs in the top of the first, a 1-2 count right now. He looks like he's got good command and looking pretty good against these tough Georgia Tech hitters.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Andy's top 10 NFL quarterbacks of all time. Let's run those down, and then I want to talk a little bit about today's game. Who do you think has the opportunity to jump up and be one of these guys we'll talk about in years to come? Andy's got Tom Brady, Joe Montana, number 3 Peyton Manning, 4 Terry Bradshaw, 5 John Elway, 6 Dan Marino, 7 Johnny Unitas, 8 Brett Favre, 9 Troy Aikman, 10 Steve Young. You got 2 on that 49ers team. That's the reason I would argue that. The pieces that were around, and mainly Jerry Rice, had a whole bunch to do with both of those. And that doesn't mean that one or the other couldn't have gone on and played somewhere else and not put those numbers up. But who knows? I mean, this is all up for debate anyway.
I put Steve Young up there because of his running ability. I mean, he was the first guy that I remember seeing in the NFL that was just – I mean, he was different than anybody.
I think Staubach was that way too.
Yeah, but it was before my time.
Mine too, but I like watching. I'm a history buff. I'll pull up some stuff and randomly watch an old game from time to time, Andy. But who in today's game do you think is deserving of being in the conversation? Is Aaron Rodgers the first one you would throw up there?
I mean, he's the first one probably that comes to mind. Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, what is he, 3 Super Bowls? He's won 2. He's a guy that just seems like he could put a team on his back. You've seen here in recent years, what did he throw? Back-to-back 500-yard games. I mean, he can throw the football. So, is Cam Newton. I mean, he's got a long way to go. But projecting out his career, if he can continue to produce the way that he is for a decade, then, maybe win a couple of Super Bowls, he becomes part of the conversation as well. Other than that, though, I mean, you look around the league, other than Aaron Rodgers and Roethlisberger and Newton, I mean, I don't know of anybody that I would even – I mean, Andrew Luck is way too early to start. I mean, you think there's some potential there, but, I mean, I just – nobody jumps off the page at me.
They don't. I tell you another one's Russell Wilson that's, as you mentioned, a little bit is worth conversation because they keep winning for a reason, and he keeps playing extremely – and he's a different type of player, and I think that – to me is intriguing. It's the reason I put Staubach up there. It's the reason you put Steve Young up there. Brings such a different dynamic to the game, and Russell Wilson does it about as well as anyone right now, Andy.
He does it that, and like you said, he's a different kind of quarterback. He just seems to be impossible to defend on third down. He's one of these guys that absolutely finds a way. I mean, when it's all said and done, he may be one of those when you look at his statistics, you go, well, I don't know what's the big deal. But then you look at it and he's got 2 or 3 Super Bowl rings and you say, oh, wow, okay, that's the big deal. But, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know where Peyton falls on your list of all-time quarterbacks.
Auburn holds Georgia Tech off the board there in the opening inning, and Auburn will come to bat here in the bottom half of the first. Your thoughts on this past weekend for the Auburn baseball team, Andy?
Ugly. I mean, you cannot go on the road like that and come away, 0-3. Troy was not a very good. They are not a very good offensive team. They got really good pitching, but they came in, I think 8-2, and they're a good team. They're not a great team. I don't know what the deal with the bats was this weekend. We seem to be very inconsistent. We seem to be very hit or miss. But the Southern Miss game, it's kind of. Auburn loses 3-1, and Southern Miss has 2 hits. And none of the 3 runs, by the way, was via hit. Okay, they scored 3 runs in 3 different innings, and didn't have a hit in the inning, in any of the 3 innings. I mean, have you ever heard of a game like that? Auburn walks in 1 run. They walk a couple. I think Lipscomb makes an error. that allows another runner to get on, and then it's sack fly or whatever. But you got to find a way to do that. The pitching, I think, is the positive that you take from this weekend. Justin Camp gives you a decent start. He does give up 3 runs, but he gives you 6, in the third. Casey Mize, who's been kind of the bright spot so far this season, freshman, he gives you 7 innings. He gives up 2 runs against Michigan State. Cole Lipscomb has given you 6 2/3, only, gives up 2 hits, but gives up somehow 2 runs, not via hit. So it's the same problem we've been dealing with now for 4 or 5 years, which is we just can't seem to be able to hit the ball in the right. We can't get clutch hits. And
we had hoped that would have changed around a little bit.
We had hoped.
But it is still a struggle out there, and a lot of these high batting averages that we bragged on going into this past weekend have quietly fallen back off. And your thoughts on this Auburn baseball program out there in the first year under Butch Thompson? 888-9 Tiger 9 334-887-3401. Our question of the day: where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of greatest QBs in NFL history? We bounced around quite a bit here.
The one guy that has not cooled off, that's Anthony Greer.
Yep.
He has absolutely picked up where he left off last year. 468, 2 homers, 10 RBIs, has already scored 18 runs. That's double anybody else on the team. So he's getting on base quite a bit. When Nico Montello is 22 RBIs, he seems to be the RBI machine for Auburn, but nobody else is really stepping up. Jordan Ebert is having a good year. Is Anthony Greer still second? That's another thing, too, that Auburn has done well this year. They've been running so much better. My goodness, when Sonny Galloway, that first couple of years, I think we had about 50 guys get thrown out. And that was just the first 2 weeks. We were terrible running the bases. We have gotten so much better in a short amount of time under Butch Thompson, but you got to have base runners to do that. You got to have guys – get in, and you got to be good situations to do that. Outside
of the opening game, which was a tough one for Auburn softball program, defeating Indiana 8-7. The rest
behind 7-0 in that game, by the way.
The rest of the stretch of the games were exceptional, and this Auburn softball program, number 4 in the country, 20-1 overall, just a special group, aren't they, Andy?
Yeah, when you watch women's softball more and more, you understand that. You kind of have to put things in perspective a little bit. They're going to hit, the girls that really know what they're doing, they're going to hit. But you start looking through this lineup of Auburn, and they've got 4 girls batting over 400, 2 girls batting over 500, and 8 of the 9 starters in the field are hitting over 347. That's knocking the cover off the ball. And then you go down, these are the backups, okay? These are just the backups that have got at least 10 at-bats this year. Girls that don't play hardly at all. They just get plugged in occasionally. Jenna Abbott, she plays a good bit, but she's hitting 394. McCracken, 375. Emily Spain, 333. Courtney Shea, 308, with 5 homers. A backup, by the way. Potany, 308. And Dickey, 273. That's just the backups that have – there are other girls – that have only gotten 4 or 5 at-bats that are hitting 500 and such.
Can I take credit for calling Wallace before the season started?
You did. You called her out, and she has delivered.
I think she's going to continue to deliver. She's got a little bit something special about her. She impressed me in the College World Series this past year where she just made some exceptional at-bats, and the way that she ran the team as a freshman was really eye-opening, and she's currently hitting 452, 19 hits, 2 home runs, 17 RBIs on the season. But Casey Cooper,
she's a machine.
She is. She's maybe one of the best we've ever had.
She is. She's going to go down, I think, as the best Auburn softball player ever. Until maybe, who knows what's going to come next. But there's a reason she is, was picked to be on the USA softball team. And that doesn't happen very often. It's the first time ever it's happened for an Auburn player. And she just and the funny thing is, if you watch this weekend on the SEC Network, they were talking about Casey Myers and Clint talking about that she's not quite locked in yet. She's like you said. She's hitting 518, and she's not quite locked in yet
with 7 home runs.
So that's just It's just crazy. I mean, and you add in the fact that she's just dynamite at third base. She's a vacuum over there. So the difference between this team and the first 2 years of Clint Myers there, though, is the pitching. Again, if you've been watching these first couple of weeks here, Michaela Martin, she's the real deal. Freshman coming in, doesn't seem to be affected at all moving to the college game. She throws strikes. She's leading the team 5-0, record 0.41 ERA. You look down through here, and probably 3 weeks into the season last year, ERAs looked like maybe 2.5, 3.6. I mean, we were scoring a lot of runs like we have been. But you look at these ERAs now, Michaela Martin, 0.41. Carlson, Carlson, 133. Marcy Harper, 189. Lexi Davis, 0.70. Rachel Walters, 0.79. This team can pitch. And that's the difference this year. They're not only crushing the ball like they have been the first 2 years, they can shut you down on the mound this year. And if that's the case, if that continues with the depth of that, you got 5 starters you can go to. I mean, it really is. You really feel comfortable saying it's Oklahoma City or bust.
Upcoming games. Tomorrow, Auburn will take on Tennessee State. That's a doubleheader, 4 p.m., 6:30 p.m. And then this weekend, what a nice matchup. Looking forward to this one, Andy.
Number 1, Florida coming. I mean, I think Florida's 22-0. They've got, I think, the best ERA in the country as a team. That's their bread and butter. They pitch better than anybody, and they've won, I think, back-to-back national championships. So Auburn didn't get to face them in the regular season last year, didn't get to face them in the SEC tournament, but they lost 3-2 in the World Series. And I know they've been have itching to get them, to have a chance to play them again. And, here you go. You get them at your place. This is going to be a monster weekend for Auburn.
888-9 Tiger 9 334-887-3401. Our question of the day: where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of greatest QBs in NFL history?
Don't go anywhere. More Sportscall presented by Lee Marketing Group is on the way right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of Sportscall. Andy and Randy here with you for one more segment in the first hour of today's show. Where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history? That is the question of the day. Love to hear from you on that. Auburn gets a run in the first inning against Georgia Tech. Anthony Greer walks, steals second, gets moved over to third, and on cue, Nico Buentejo, RBI single up the middle. Anthony Greer scores. Auburn up 1-0 in the top of two. No outs is Andrew Mitchell, the sophomore, on the mound for the Tigers. Be sure to stay tuned as we go through the break. Brian Matthews will join us at 5 o'clock. We'll start in the second hour, get his thoughts. I don't know if he may be in Plainsman Park. Usually is. We'll check with him, see what he's up to today.
Let's bounce around a little bit. One, did you see Andrew Bogut actually sprint by Stephen Curry shooting a three? You didn't see this?
I did not.
You've got to pull the clip up. And it's become kind of fun. You know, it's amazing that many people show up to watch him warm up, to watch him dribble pregame, shooting threes, shooting from, 10, 12 feet behind 3-point. I think he's hitting over 50% from 30 feet this year. Did I see some crazy, obscene number like that?
I think that's correct.
I think it is. I think I saw 51% from some crazy distance. But in the game, Bogut just he sees that he's open. He just starts the other way and literally runs by Curry.
During a game?
During the game. Oh, yes, during the game. During the game, Curry ends up wide open, right wing. 3-point shot. Bogut sprints by him. He's 5-6 feet behind him, heading the other way when he lets go of the ball. It's awesome, man. And Curry has become that. And somehow in the world, the Lakers pulled off a miraculous victory over. I don't know what in the world was going on. 2 of 18 from 3-point land for Golden State, for Curry and Thompson that night. So that was the reason we saw them go down. But nonetheless, still a special team.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to say that's – I think if you go back and look at the teams they've lost to, I mean, it's not like they've been great teams. I mean, it's just kind of those inexplicable nights when you're off and the Lakers had a great night and, those kind of things happen. And though it's going to happen in an 82-game season. So I think, 20 games left? 20 games left. We'll see what happens.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Terry, you're on Sports Call.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call.
Glad to have you, Terry.
Yes, sir. I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I know we play 2 different types of football now, the modern day and the old day. But the greatest quarterback that I've ever seen in my time, based upon the era that it played, was Y.A. Tittle.
Tell me a little bit about him. I mean, I know the name. I know who he is. Did not see him play ever.
Well, yes. He could run the ball. He could. Back then, they didn't even know options. And he'd hand off somebody. And then when he got back in the backfield, he could find somebody open. And then he would wind up kicking extra points and field goals.
Yeah, I've heard a lot on him, and one that's not on there, and Otto Graham's one that won probably as many championships as anybody else, didn't
he? Exactly. But all around, quarterback in my lifetime, and I love Joe Namath, and all the modern days, but they couldn't exist in the old-time football. And the old-time football couldn't exist in today's football. So it's just a toss-up. But Y.A. Tittle was probably the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life is in the old school.
Well, Terry, we appreciate your phone call this afternoon, buddy.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of greatest QBs in NFL history? I've got him 2.5. I can go either Montana or Manning there at 2 or 3. I think Tom Brady clearly there at number 1. You've got him at number 3, don't you, Andy?
I do. I mean, he could move up. I mean, I wouldn't argue too hard, but like I said, I mean, I usually used to have Tom Brady at number 2, but just that started ringing in my head a couple of weeks ago. 10 AFC championship games, 6 Super Bowls, 4 victories. The only reason he lost 2 is because of 2 fluky plays against the Giants, or he'd have 6 Super Bowls. I don't know how you put anybody above it.
888-9 Tiger 9 334-887-3401. We got Brian Matthews coming up next hour.
The Fox Sports Report's up next. Join us on the other side. More Sports Call after this.
buckle your seatbelts because it's going to be a show to watch.
From Tiger Communications.
Jackson, touchdown.
For 20 years, East Alabama's sports talk leader.
Swing and drive, Belton right.
Sportscall.
Oh, what a dunk.
Call in now at 887-3401-LOCAL.
Right through, he got it.
Or 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free.
Struck him out.
And now, coming to you live from the loveliest village on the plains, Sports Call.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of Sports Call. Andy Graham and Randy Lee here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free or locally at 334-887-3401. Sports Call today brought to you by Home Place Mortgage and Lee Marketing Group. Appreciate those sponsors as they support Sports Call. We appreciate them. We couldn't do this type of show without them or without you. We'd love to hear from you today. So give us a call. We'll pick up your phone calls in the next segment, but right now we want to go to start off the second hour and go to the phone line and pick up Brian Matthews from auburnsports.com. Brian, how's your day today?
Oh, it's going terrific. Just finished watching a little bit of practice and about to head over to baseball.
See anything interesting at practice today?
Not a whole lot. Injury-wise, Paul James III was back going through drills. He'd been out with a minor foot injury here the first week of practice. Rudy Ford still out with some sort of illness. Don't know any specifics on that. He's walking around out there just fine. He just has not been cleared to practice yet.
Auburn in pads today or just short?
They were in pads, and we got to see a little bit extended period. We saw them do a pace 11-on-11 at the end of our viewing period. Jeremy Johnson got the rest of the first team, then went Sean White, and then John Franklin the third, and got to see a little bit of that. I like what I saw of John Franklin. He ran a little zone read there and threw some passes, and overall it was good to see them, running at that high pace that we've seen in the past and be very effective.
Well, yesterday Auburn had their pro day as several graduating seniors or early enrollees in the NFL got to audition a little bit for. I guess pretty much every NFL team besides one, I think, was in attendance. What were your thoughts about that? I mean, who were the quote-unquote winners and losers yesterday?
Well, I thought Blake Countess really helped himself. As a guy that didn't get to go to the combine, and this was his big day in front of scouts, and he went out there and performed very well. It tested out great, 21 reps on the bench. I think it was a 36-inch vertical. I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I know he ran a 4.49 on the second 40 attempt and ran a 4.18 in this 20-yard shuttle, which I thought was excellent. And just looked good to me in the DB drills along with Jonathan Jones out there. So I think Blake is really helped him get into some portion of that last day of the draft, which is going to be big for him.
Well, Duke Williams took part in the pro day yesterday. That was kind of up in the air until I think about an hour maybe before it started. Gus Malzahn again being Gus, but what's your thoughts on that? I know some people might have thought maybe he shouldn't have been there. Some people thought, well, what does it help, or what good does it do if you don't let him participate? You got any feelings of that one way or the other?
Well, I thought it was the right decision. Even though Duke was kicked off the team, that was college football, and this is his chance to go in front of the NFL and have an opportunity to better himself. And you don't want to keep a young man from doing that. That could end up backfiring you in the future, with recruits or other players. So it was the right thing to bring him back. And don't know why Gus decided to keep it secret until that time, but whatever. I didn't think Duke did anything special. And, I think it's going to be either somebody taking a flyer on him in the later rounds, or he's going to have to earn his way to a free agent contract.
You think, obviously we see his numbers at the NFL Combine. We saw his numbers from yesterday. Are these, basically his numbers that have been like this when he was playing at Auburn? And maybe he's just that kind of guy that, looks differently and moves differently in pads. I mean, he's a game day type player, or, has he lost a step?
Well, I think there's something to be said for him being a game day player, but I also am not sure and we weren't able to talk to him about this because he didn't grant any interviews. But I'm not convinced that he's been training that hard since he was kicked off the team. I think it's back in October. You know, like somebody like Jonathan Jones has been, or Blake Countess, or you know, all these other guys that are trying to earn a spot in the draft. I'm not sure that Duke has been going through the same type of regimen. And when you don't do that, you don't prepare for these combines, you don't perform very well.
Well, it was a tough weekend for the Auburn baseball team as they dropped 3 at the Cox Diamond Invitational down there in Pensacola. The pitching, you know, was good enough to win, but the offense just not able to get it done. Auburn now 6-6 on the season. I believe they're up 1-0 right now over Georgia Tech in the bottom of 2. So, you know, Auburn with one more series before SEC play begins. You know, where is this team? Where is this team headed right now, do you think?
Well, I wouldn't get too down on the baseball team. There's lost a lot of close games. They need a little dose of confidence, which a win over Georgia Tech today would certainly go a long way into helping that. And they do have some holes on this team, and there's nothing that Butch Thompson and his staff can do about that right now. They got to roll out the guys they got. But I think these guys can play a little bit better as a team, do a better job of hitting and, you know, with runners in scoring position, do a better job of moving runners over. And, you know, he's still trying to develop the pitching staff and trying to find a little bit more depth there, and that's sort of an ongoing process.
Yeah, certainly. If you want to take a positive from this weekend, I definitely think it's the pitching. You get 3 really quality starts. And Casey Mize, I mean, you talked about you mentioned his name a couple of times as we were leading up to the season, Ben Bramer and Casey Mize. And, boy, I mean, Mize has been a highlight so far this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's got a really live arm. Can hit 93, 94, I believe. And, you know, he's a guy that looks like he's going to give Auburn 3 really terrific years as what I imagine now is going to be a starter. And it looks like a guy that could eventually be a Friday night type guy. So as long as he keeps developing, I think Dustin Camp's off to a pretty solid start. And, of course, he's got Cole Lipscomb. That gives them a pretty solid, you know, starting 3. They just got to develop some more pitchers besides Bramer, you know, behind those guys.
Auburn heads to the SEC tournament up in Nashville tomorrow. They'll take on Tennessee. Auburn 1-1 against Tennessee this year. I actually went to Starkville to watch them play Mississippi State in person over the weekend. Do you think that Auburn has any magic like they did last year, or is it going to be one and done this year?
I'm not sure it'll be one and done, but I'm also not sure they have the magic like they did last year. They certainly don't have KT Orrell, who was had a just incredible tournament and led Auburn on that run. But, you know, you look at the matchup with Tennessee, Auburn split the regular season with them. Tennessee lost their leading scorer, their point guard, so they're in a similar situation as Auburn has been. But Auburn's been dealing with this situation for a lot longer than Tennessee has. So I think that might be a little bit of advantage for Auburn going in that game. The problem for Auburn in making a run is the winner of this game gets Vanderbilt, and Auburn does not match up well against a team like Vanderbilt, which is 3 7-footers, and really that length and that size and their rebounding is really trouble for this Auburn team.
Peyton Manning announces his retirement yesterday. Of course, he's, you know, if you're a sports fan, you've been listening and watching Peyton Manning for the last 18 years or even 24 years probably. You know, what's your thoughts about him retiring and his place in NFL history? That's kind of our question of the day today. Where do you place Peyton Manning on your scale of greatest NFL quarterback?
I'm not ready to rank him. I haven't thought about that hard, but he's definitely one of the best of all time. There's no doubt about that. And maybe he is the best of all time. I haven't really had a chance to sit down and think about it or look at the numbers, but certainly a great, great player. And I guess what I'll remember most about him just is his dedication and work ethic to the game. He's obviously a guy that, you know, sort of put everything he had into it, didn't leave anything, you know, didn't waste any time, you know, did everything he could to be the best player he could and be the best teammate he could. So I think he leaves a great legacy.
Well, Brian, one final question. The Auburn Athletics has signed this deal with Fox Sports to exclusively manage the multimedia rights and sponsor sales. You know, what all is that going to entail, and is that going to have what kind of effect is that going to have, do you think?
I'm not sure I know everything about this new deal or what all it entails exactly, but for me, it's basically just them outbidding the IMG Auburn Network and I would imagine that Fox is going to come in, and I expect them to come in and re-sign most of the talent or all the talent that was working with the Auburn network. So I don't anticipate a whole bunch of big changes, but I'm not. I haven't talked to anybody with Fox. I haven't really written about this yet. It's all the release. Read a little bit about it, so I can't tell you a lot of detail.
10-year contract, $120 million was supposedly the number that was thrown out. I don't know if that's ever a bad thing.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Well, Brian, we appreciate so much you joining us today, as always, on Tuesdays. If you wouldn't mind, just kind of give us a preview of what to expect from auburnsports.com this week.
Well, I'm uploading a movie right now, so we should have some practice highlights coming up in just a few minutes. And head over to baseball, and then, of course, we'll have more coverage of football this week and recruiting, the basketball game, baseball. I mean, softball. There's just a lot going on right now in Auburn Athletics, and we're going to cover every bit of it.
You do a great job, Brian. We appreciate it as always. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Up against the break. Don't go anywhere. More Sports Call on the way right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Call on this Tuesday afternoon. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock, about 40 more minutes, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. Auburn up 1-0 on Georgia Tech in the bottom of the third inning. Anthony Greer has a one-out double in the bottom of the third. So one on, one out. Auburn up 1-0 in the third inning. Andrew Mitchell looking very well on the mound, pitching great so far. Looks like he's in total command of his pitches. So, Auburn really needing a shot in the arm and beating depending on which poll you look at, number 9, maybe number 17, but undefeated Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Johnny, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys, how's it going?
Good. Glad to have you, Johnny.
Thank you. It's an interesting topic today. I think I do have Peyton in my top 10. I think still it sinks in a little more and more of the stats come out. I still have him towards the bottom of the 10. I do agree with Tom Brady. I think he's up at the top. And then you got to look at your quarterbacks that never lost. You have a couple of guys 4-0, a couple of guys 3-0. And I think one guy kind of overlooked in all that is Mark Starr. I know he's 2-0. He won Super Bowl 1 and 2, but that was the first 2 years of the NFL. If you remember, I think it was either the prior 3 or 4, maybe 5 years before, what was it, the American Football League? I know 61 through 67, Bart Starr was on championship teams. I think that's 7 years before their NFL there. But there was a period there over 6 years where they won the title every year. So I personally, I'm a little biased, but I have Bart Starr is almost the top guy because I know there was 3 or 4 years prior to the NFL, but he won 5 or 6 back-to-back world championships there. I know 2 of them was Super Bowl 1 and 2. And I think Aaron Rodgers could be in this list. To me, he's just as good as Brady. I think he's a victim of Ted Thompson, just not doing anything with the draft, not doing anything with free agency. I think this could be. I think he's wasting some of the best years of Rodgers' career of not putting good players around him. He's done a lot with a lot of people that you say some of these guys that went to other teams and, the James Jones who goes places and can't get a job and then comes back. I mean, these guys are good because they're made good by a good quarterback. And I think if he'd had some of the primetime players in his career, he may be at the top of this list. I think he could be right there with Brady.
So
they're talking,
So, Johnny, let me ask you this. Your list, you said Peyton's near, the bottom of the top 10 there. But your list, you rely heavily on championships, not really necessarily statistics. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what I'm saying. You got to look. Is it Joe Montana? The Steelers quarter. What was the Steelers?
Terry Bradshaw.
He was 4-0. I mean, these guys have never lost, and I weigh that a lot. I'll be honest with you. I don't give Peyton a lot of. Me personally, I don't give Peyton a lot of credit on this last Super Bowl because he had absolutely zero to do with that win. Zero. There's probably 10 or 15 guys on the sideline who was just on the roster who got rings. I put him in that classification because he couldn't even get a first down, couldn't even complete a pass. He just happened to be on a team that had the best defense probably I've ever seen. And, of course, he'll get to wear that ring the rest of his life. But I personally give him zero for that.
Hey, we appreciate it this afternoon, Johnny. Good points that you're making there, buddy. Thank you, 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. You want a ridiculous stat for you, though?
Yes.
Bart Starr, what was his touchdown to interceptions ratio in 67?
I have not a clue.
9 and 17, same as Peyton Manning's just was this year. So, but again, I kind of agree with Johnny, though. It's a different day and age. It's tough to look back. You look at a Joe Namath. His overall, he's 30, 40 interceptions above touchdowns in his career. Now, when you just passing the eye test, of course he does. I mean, he's got games that you watch and you can see the arm talent that he had. But others, I think that it's just different. It's kind of going back to Roger Staubach. You really got to take the day and age, the Johnny Unitas, the Otto Graham that won so many. If you're weighing on championships, of course Bart Starr's up there, but I'd be interested to see where his stats match up with any of these that we're talking about.
And that's the balance, like I said. But, I mean, it's your list.
Yeah.
You can create it however you want to create it. But for me, I try to balance championships versus statistics because there is some factor of, like he mentioned, there's some factor of front office that plays a huge part in this. There's some factor of luck about where you get drafted. And if Tom Brady, just kind of fell into the Patriots and Bill Belichick and that front office, and they have, created this juggernaut that is the New England Patriots right now. But, Dan Marino, he had great talent around him. There's no question, he's a great quarterback. His statistics are off the chart, but no championships. And is that all his fault? No, but I think you do have to take it into consideration. And now, one thing I agree wholeheartedly with Johnny, Peyton was a detriment more than he was a help to the Broncos in that Super Bowl and in the playoffs. So I agree with that 100%. This was a total coattails. Let's throw a lasso around him and drag him to a championship.
888-9-TIGER-9 334-887-3401. I like high school sports here in the state, so I followed old high school players that were outstanding. Tremaine Pope, that went to Jacksonville State from Anniston High School. Saw him in an all-star game event where neither Auburn or Alabama or any really other big-time school made an offer to him. He ends up at Jacksonville State. He sits beside another high school star that we saw in this state, DeMarcus James, that was the starter. He was from Demopolis High School, and he was exceptional also. Good story, Tremaine Pope last year. He almost rushes for 1,800 yards, 1,788 on the season. Here's the big thing, though, today. Did you see his pro day, Andy?
No.
Whoa.
At Jacksonville State?
At Jacksonville State. He is an easy they don't have his size listed here. I wish I could pull that up. He's an easy 225 guy, though. This guy's a big guy. Big, strong, lower body. He's probably a 5'8", 225 guy.
Ran over Auburn this year.
35-inch vertical. 25 bench presses at 225. Then he heads on over and he runs a 4.49 40. Runs a 4.55 on the second attempt, so a 4.49 on the first attempt. That's pretty darn impressive, Andy. And everything you're reading, he's got a good chance. And he's got the good body type to potentially do that. And that 40 number is what gives him probably a very good opportunity. I hope Peyton Barber gets his chance too, but I think Pope's probably got a little bit extra burst in him.
Yeah, watching those two guys together, this year and keeping up with Jacksonville State a little bit, he was very impressive and certainly wish him the best. Hopefully he ends up with a really good and productive NFL career. Jordan Ebert grabs into a double play to end the third with runners at first and third and one out. Auburn still leads 1-0, headed to the top of the fourth. So we'll try to keep you updated on that. Again, where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history? I've had some response to that. I was not expecting bottom of the 10, bottom of the top 10. But that's interesting. I like to have a varied opinion. We've had a Y.A. Tittle mention. You and I both agree Tom Brady has ascended to number one. It sounded like Johnny pretty much had made that assumption as well, or made that idea as well. It's just hard. It's hard not to. I don't care if you hate Tom Brady at this point. It's just hard not to put him at number one with everything that he is, with everything that he has done, because he has not had the greatest talent surrounding him, like say a Joe Montana or some of these, maybe a Troy Aikman. But we'd love to hear from you. Love to know what you think. 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free locally at 334-887-3401. We're up against the break here, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Sports Call right after these messages.
You keep listening to that one, we're going to go to sleep.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of Sportscall. Andy and Randy here with you for about 25 more minutes or so, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. Where does Peyton Manning rank on your scale of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history? I had some interesting responses to that so far. We'd love to know where he ranks on your list. A lot of great quarterbacks to choose from. It depends on how you can frame it any way you'd like to. Do you put more value on championships won? Do you put more value on statistics? It's your list. So where does he rank on your list? The SEC announced the awards today for the college basketball season. I'm getting ahead of myself. Texas A&M's Billy Kennedy earned SEC Coach of the Year. No real surprise there. Texas A&M opened the season, outstanding. Had a kind of a little bit of a lull there in the middle, but finished strong as well as they win the SEC. Although they, technically tied with Kentucky, but they did, I think, defeat the Wildcats. So they, Texas A&M winning the SEC. Tyler Ulis, from a sophomore from Kentucky, selected as the SEC Player of the Year as well as the Defensive Player of the Year. Alabama's Retin Obasahan earned SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year. LSU's Ben Simmons, the SEC Freshman of the Year. South Carolina's Dwayne Notice was the SEC Sixth Man of the Year. First team and second team, all SEC. No Auburn Tigers among them. Not a shock.
When you look at Ben Simmons, I guess he can win this one.
I guess. Grade's not a point. Grade's not a factor here, I don't guess.
Could you care less that Maria Sharapova failed a drug test, or you do care?
I care. I like tennis. I watch it. I do. I enjoy women's tennis for various reasons. But it's kind of interesting. She comes out and she says, she holds this press conference and says that she, I take great responsibility and professionalism in my career every day. I made a huge mistake. I let my fans down. I let my sport down. Now, she's been taking this drug for the past 10 years. Okay, it just now became illegal January 1st, apparently. Some people use it or they figured out that some people are using this melatonin is the name of the drug, and it helps promote blood flow and oxygen to the to the extremities or whatever. So she's been using this. Apparently, it's prevalent in maybe the Russia and these kind of countries. But the company comes out and says you're only supposed to use it 4 to 6 weeks, or 4 to 6. I think that's right. 4 to 6, not 10 years. So there's some back and forth going on here. But the fact that she's been using it for 10 years, what has changed? So you're saying that she's been cheating now for either 10 years, but it wasn't illegal. But how is it any different now? So I don't. What's the problem?
Various reasons.
Yeah. Hey, I'm being honest.
888-9-TIGER-9 334-887-3401. Did you read into this Fox Sports new deal with Auburn?
It basically, from what I understand, but other than now,
IMG's out. Fox Sports is in.
We're out of the IMG business. We're into the Fox business. I don't think it's going to change anything. You're not going to see a new color and play-by-play man. That's not going to happen. So I don't understand. Supposedly it's supposed to help with the national brand and things like that. I don't know.
There's just stuff that goes on behind the scenes, much like Under Armour, that for the everyday fan, other than we may go buy some Under Armour tennis shoes rather than some Nikes, because for real, everyday fan like you and I would probably don't notice the difference. Correct?
Correct. It's in venue signage. This is going to affect that as well. That's kind of
I know a little bit about that kind of stuff. Yeah, I won't go too deep into it, but interesting.
Well, how does Fox? How are they a part of that now?
A marketing arm, much like IMG. A lot of these licensing companies are partnering up with a marketing arm like Learfield and IMG. CLC being one that's partnered up as well, and when you are partnered with them, they make a lot of those decisions. They put the whole brand together along with the athletic department, and they partner up with local vendors to produce, of course, and install and do a lot of the work there. But for the most part, they run the show. They make the decisions on who gets that business. That's, as an insider, I wouldn't call myself an insider by no stretch, but as a person who owns a sign business, I get this one a little bit more.
Is that good or bad?
I don't know. Depends on who you're asking.
Right.
I'm sure.
I'm asking you.
If you happen to have an IMG contact and you've been doing a lot of the work, and you probably don't want to see this change, would be my guess. It's just me guessing. I don't know full scope about it, but it probably opens up some doors for some others, would be my guess.
And, it's interesting. The SEC comes out today or yesterday, I think, and they have announced that they're partnering, or they have signed on with, I think it's the Richards Group. I think that's what it's called. But branding, talking about the brand of the SEC and marketing it. And you're seeing so much more and more about how, businesses and sports entities themselves are, marketing themselves to the public. And, these are the same people that created the We'll Leave the Light On For You for Motel 6, the Eat More Chicken for Chick-fil-A. So that they I think they were responsible for the Farmer commercial in the Super Bowl. That wasn't everybody, remembers so well. I think it was a Dodge commercial. So that's interesting, that this is where, and people have, not that this hasn't always been important, but it seems to be they have keyed in on it now, as this is such a, this is an important part of being in the business.
We're going to go to another caller here shortly, but you're in my wheelhouse a little bit. And of course, I think marketing and branding's clearly in today's world about as important as anything. And why? Because there's a million different ways that we receive our media and we receive news. So if you don't have a consistent brand that you're pushing out there, it's trouble. You may bring up a couple one that comes to mind that probably had the worst PR nightmare I can remember. Maybe not on a national scale because they're such a smaller school in comparison. But the UAB situation with the football program this past year, you couldn't have handled that worse. And that's a branding and PR nightmare, and it should have never been allowed to happen. And that's just partnering with the wrong people and taking the wrong advice. So you don't want that to happen. We had the same talk about Tennessee this past week, and the coaches coming out arm in arm. And was that the right thing? Athletic director ain't even around. A little bit of a PR. So let's go to the phone lines. Bill, you're on Sportscall. Bill, you there with us?
Yes. Hey, good evening, guys.
Hey, glad to have you, Bill.
Thanks. You're going to think this is actually Shadow, by the way, that I'm going to make my call, but I just have I guess a statement and a question, and then I'll hang up and listen to your guys' opinion. We finished last in the West in the SEC in football. We are the bottom seed in the SEC tournament, thanks to only one school, Missouri, for self-imposing penalties. And it's looking like we're going to be in the cellar again in baseball this year. What do y'all think is going to need to happen at Auburn in the athletic department for there to be major changes, especially at the top? And I'll hang up and listen.
Good call, Bill. You want to start with that one, buddy?
Well, all that's true. I think we've done all that we can possibly do for basketball. We have put a guy in charge that is a proven winner, that is just magnanimous in, the scope of everything of his personality and how it affects the university and how good a PR guy he is. And you're seeing that in recruiting. I think, and of course, I don't know why you'd listen to me, but I think Butch Thompson is the right guy. I thought Sonny Galloway was the right hire because he's a winner. I didn't foresee that his personality was going to be so bad and he was going to be so crazy that it was going to end up just blowing up. But, Butch Thompson seems like the right guy. I don't know if he'll be the great coach, but I think he's the right man for the job. So I think we pour money into both. I think we pour certainly enough to be successful. So I don't know what else we can do for basketball and baseball at this point to try to be successful. Football, on the other hand, what's got to happen for things to change in the athletic department? Well, if we bottom out and go are worse than we were last year, 6-7, obviously Gus Malzahn will be fired, that whole coaching staff, and I'm not sure what it'd take to. Is what I think we're talking about top heavy, or if we're talking about head leadership to be removed. I'm not sure what that would take. But again, I look at it, and you're talking about moves that Jay Jacobs has made. I don't know. I don't know what else he can do as an individual for basketball and baseball.
I kind of think along the same lines that you do. I'd love to sit up here and say I had answers for it, but I don't, because Gus Malzahn proved he can win. Took us to a national championship year one. Now, what's happened since then is beyond me, but it's happened, and now we're in year 4, and things need to drastically change. I think we do have the right guy in place in both those sports. I think it's a little bit of a different issue in baseball. I think we're sitting here playing an uphill battle. I think Jay Jacobs wrote an outstanding article, if you haven't read it, on AL.com way back when, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 months ago. We're not playing on an even playing field in the SEC, and it's not close. The bordering states that we have and the opportunities that they have to give scholarships to in-state kids in comparison to what we're doing, it's not fair. And the only way to change it outside of political move and the state making a decision to come up to par. And look, I don't want to get into politics today, but what Jay said was if it's not going to be that way, let's all play on the same level playing field. And I don't think there's any random act that you see Auburn and Alabama struggling since you see a lot of those changes, Andy. I think that it's in place, and we're looking. I mean, look, we hadn't had a winner there since 2000. We've had 2 winning seasons in the SEC since 2000, since Hal Baird left. We've had plenty of coaches. We've had some winners during that stretch, but it hasn't proven. I don't know if I gave any answers there, but I have a hard time putting the blame on Jay Jacobs. I really do.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I understand all the arguments, and I think that in this day and age you do need to have somebody with an MBA to run an athletic department, but I just I don't know what else. Again, I don't know what else we can do as far as throwing money at it and getting the right people in the right positions for baseball and basketball at this point.
Do not get me wrong, though. Let's don't mix words. I threw Jay Jacobs up there then. I don't have any problem whatsoever to see some of the turnover that's going on in the athletic department and the school in general.
And there is some turnover taking place.
There's a lot of turnover taking place, and in many cases, I think it's good turnover that was needed. It was getting a little bit stale. Some people in place that not some of the nicest people I've ever dealt with in some situations, let's just put it that way. And so making a move sounds good to me, Andy.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, Georgia Tech ties the game in the top of the 5th. No outs, runner at first. It is now 1-1. And Andrew Mitchell still on the mound for the Auburn Tigers. We'll take your phone calls. We'll continue to discuss this in the final segment of today's show. Give us a call, 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free, locally at 334-887-3401. Stick around. More to come right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Sportscall on this Tuesday afternoon. One final segment on today's show. Andy and Randy taking you home to 6 o'clock here. Still time to get that final phone call in. 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free locally at 334-887-3401. You know, Randy, it comes to my mind. I think, Jim Kelly probably belongs in that top 10. That's a guy I probably left out, but tremendous, numbers, 4 straight AFC title games. I think he could probably squeeze his way into that number 10 spot.
You could not continue to argue your Montana feeling that way. You and Johnny. Was it Johnny or was it someone else that – yeah, Johnny was the one that took winning above statistics.
He did.
I like where you stand, though. You're a little bit in the middle because, to me, I still try to go what my eyes told me, and even what my eyes told me in some big games. And, Dan Marino in his heyday. It's hard not to put him somewhere right around the top.
Peyton makes mention of that, first game he ever played, facing Dan Marino, and he's just talking about, wow, how awe he was of him and the throws that he was making. He's probably oddly enough, it may turn out that Dan Marino may turn into one of the most underrated quarterbacks of all time.
Let's go back to the phone line. Steve, you're on Sports Call.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Glad to have you, Steve.
Thanks for letting me be on the phone for a little bit. Has anyone mentioned Terry Bradshaw?
I got him at number 4 all time. Where do you put him?
I put him at least in the top 5, if not maybe top 3.
What about Peyton Manning?
Look, I haven't been that impressed with Peyton Manning, to tell you the truth, honestly. There's other quarterbacks, Steve Montana, Steve Young. Has he been mentioned?
I got him at number 10. What about you?
Okay. Roger Staubach.
I got him a lot higher than Andy. Doesn't have him in his top 10. I'd probably have him around 5 or so if it were up to me.
Okay. But, Terry Bradshaw, I remember when I was a real young kid, not young anymore, watched him on Sundays. And, if he threw a pass, he was going to go to 1 or 2 people, and they were never going to drop it. I never saw him drop a pass. And you know what I'm talking about. Lynn Swann or John Stallworth.
No matter what they had, they go up over you.
No matter what he threw at them, they would catch it. And that was just a dynamic duo. And Terry Bradshaw, I think, was one of the best. Now, I did not know that Terry suffered, apparently, from severe depression.
Has for a long, long time. Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks for taking my phone call. And he would be my top 3, not top 5, top 3 quarterbacks of all time. Thank you, young War Eagle.
Appreciate it. I'm shocked. I've heard now from 3 different people that not that impressed with Peyton Manning. 539 touchdown passes all time, number 1. 71,940 passing yards, that'd be number 1. 186 wins as a quarterback, that'd be tied for number 1 all time. His team's made 14 playoff appearances in 18 years. Number 1 all-time passing in a season, number 1 all-time touchdowns in a season, 14-time Pro Bowl, 7 of those first team.
6 MVPs?
5 MVPs, more than anybody. Not that impressed with Peyton Manning.
You don't think there could be a little SEC bias?
I guess it's I don't care. He beat Auburn in 1998, but 1997. But I didn't hold that. I don't hold that again. Maybe not. Maybe I'm in the moment too much. But I'm kind of surprised people are low rating Manning. And again, it's their list. That's fine. But I would argue that he's got to be in the top 10.
Yeah, and I'll argue that he's 2 or 3. You can rotate Montana or Manning to me. I thought Manning took less talent to more wins than Montana had to. Doesn't mean Montana couldn't have, but when Montana started, he took a mediocre team and built it. But once Walsh got a hold of that juggernaut, they took that to where you saw it end up, and that was a special group with the best player of all time. Someone may want to call in and argue that, but if Jerry Rice isn't the best football player that ever patted him up. Who else would you put up there, Andy? Sure helps a lot when you're throwing to him.
Absolutely. I mean, and again, John Taylor, probably one of the more underrated receivers ever. Montana's cast of characters was unbelievable, and a reason why.
And I just give a big old star beside Peyton that he hung out in college football for 4 years. I think that goes a long way. Didn't win the Heisman Trophy his final year, and Charles Woodson. I tell you what's a good story is Charles Woodson played as well as he did in the NFL. Both of them going out at the same time. Both of them first ballot Hall of Famers. Both of them arguably one of the best that ever played in both positions up against one another for the Heisman Trophy. I bet back then if you'd have said, which one do you question whenever he moves into the league that's going to play as well? I never knew that Charles Woodson. And Woodson had a few little mediocre years, but, Buddy, once he got it going, he proved to be what he was, which was special. He was special in the college game too.
I mean, Peyton coming out of college, we all knew he was a really good quarterback, but did you see that he was going to be a top 5 quarterback at all time? Did you see that? Did you think there's no question this guy's not,
First off, I'm with you, and we're in the minority, so Luke, don't call me upset. But I don't like watching 4 months leading up to the draft. It drives me nuts, bonkers. I don't want to watch any more combines. Please just let it be over. But we're in the minority again. So I don't remember thinking back at that time, overly analyzing something for 4 months leading in. I did hear the owner for the Colts say today that they had interviews set up for Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning in the same day. Leaf blew them off, didn't show up for it. Peyton Manning shows up. He ends up actually interviewing the ownership there. It says all that you need to know about the next 19 years of those two guys' lives.
I remember thinking Ryan Leaf, Peyton Manning, not big a choice for me. But maybe that's just me. We appreciate so much all of you out there joining us today. Appreciate your response to the Peyton Manning question. Sports Call back on the air tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Will and Tom will be with you then. For Randy, I'm Andy Graham saying so long for now. We'll talk again soon.